Kaixo egun on eta ongi etorri Lanbide Heziketako Nazioarteko Kongresu honetako bigarren egun.
Good morning and welcome to the International VET Conference and to the second session. Today we're going to talk about things that are very important for VET. They are all very interesting subjects, and we will start talking about cybersecurities. We have Juan Rodriguez Rico from S21Sec, a company created 21 years ago, and we'll be talking about the importance of receiving information to be able to prevent risks. Juan Carlos, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Bien, bueno, buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. As it's just been said, I'm going to talk about the need of training in cybersecurity, the need of training and VET on cybersecurity, because the different business sectors take into account communication, the use of devices connected to the internet. So this is used by everyone. So the young people receive training regarding risks, for example, in a plant, but they don't receive any training on digital risks. So when young people are going to incorporate to the labor market, they haven't received any guidelines regarding how nowadays cybersecurity is so relevant and why we are all needed to be able to maintain security. When we talk about this, some people believe that this is only linked to technicians, but the truth is that we are all involved because we're all part of the chain, and most of the incidents happen due to the lack of knowledge of an employee, not because they want this to happen, but because they don't have the knowledge. Almost daily we have news on cybersecurity. The media talks about cybersecurity and talks about new attacks, new attempts of trying to get information. So it's something very common. Here you probably can see things that are very recent. This is the 18th of May 2016, just a month ago. 117 million passwords from LinkedIn were being sold. So they've hacked a company like LinkedIn. So if anyone can hack a company such as this one, our companies don't have resources that are better than that of LinkedIn. But then we have this other piece of news from the 27th of May. 400 million passwords have been taken from MySpace. So they are taking the names of the users that are using these networks. But the problem is not only that they take the passwords, but the problem is that usually the users use the same password for LinkedIn, Facebook, Gmail, everything. So if we've been hacked and they have our password, in theory, they probably can hack us in many other places if we don't modify our passwords. Up to the point that in Netflix and Facebook, they gave an alert saying that you should change your password, and this is from the 8th of June. So why is all this happening? Well, in fact, the user is not responsible for someone getting in and using their password. The problem is that if our knowledge regarding the use of network doesn't tell us that we cannot use the same password for all the services, as soon as we detect a vulnerability, it is going to affect all of our other accounts. So someone like Mark Zuckerberg was also hacked. They hacked his Twitter because some time ago they had hacked his LinkedIn account, and he had used the same password. So someone like Mark Zuckerberg, we suppose, would know about this. The truth is that the systems are more and more complex, and they continue changing. Those of you that are users and that use Windows, you see that the evolution is continuous. We have XP, Vista, 7, 8, 8.1, 10, and we have to change and update. And each version is more complex and has more code instructions, which means that we can see more problems and vulnerabilities. That's why we need to update the new versions. On the other hand, the exchange of information is also continuous. We're always connected through our smartphones, our tablets, our PCs, our watches, and even our televisions, and very soon also through the Internet of Things. Because this is bringing us to a world in which any device is going to be connected to the Internet. This is the reality that we should be aware of. Of course, we're learning how to live in a digitalized world, but they're not so teaching us how to do it in a safe manner. And that is the challenge. And that's why we believe that vocational education and training should be the starting point for all young people to understand the risks of the use of technology and the use of everything having to do with the internet. Security incidents continue to grow. Every year, there's more and more news on this. What you see here is a map, and there's companies that launch information regarding the attacks that are being received and who is launching these attacks. This is from a few days ago, but what you can see here, so these are real-time attacks. Here we have an IP address, and it is showing where the attacks are coming from. And here we see the countries of origin, which are mainly the US and China. I don't know if they attack each other or what, but there's the one with more attacks, and then Ukraine, the type of attack, and also the target countries. But this is something happening in real time. So we know that the systems that are detecting these attacks are showing this image. So this is something that is not going to stop. We know that this is a race that started some years ago and that this will continue. What will be we foresee regarding cyber threats? Well, we know that it won't stop. There's an increase of cyber war. When I was 10 years ago, at the end of the 60s, there was a program on television of the army that explained how you needed to be prepared if they attacked you on land, on the sea, or on the air, and then they added the space. But now the real threat is cyberspace. And now the military knows that they need to be prepared for these type of attacks based on cyber attacks that could create a problem in the underground or in a nuclear plant. There are many films talking about this, and there's a part of fiction, but there's another part that I could say is real now. So we need for technology to show us that this is a reality. There are also many attacks on smartphones. Why? Because nowadays everyone has a smartphone, or maybe 2 or 3 smartphones. You have a device that is as powerful as a computer of some years ago, and that you're always connected, and you can purchase, and you can organize your trips, you can do almost anything. So the attackers have seen that these are the devices where they can be more successful due to the fact that there are thousands of millions of people that use these devices but don't use the same security rules in our smartphones that we use when you use our computers. And we want to download hundreds of apps that we don't know what to use for, and many of them we don't even know what they do. Because if we would look at the market of apps sold, how can it be possible that there are millions of apps that are free and that they are all different versions of other apps? So how do these people make money? This is not an NGO. There's no someone who's decided to create all these hundreds of apps in a free manner. So there's something behind it. And I always say, when you don't pay for a product, you become the product. So we need to be aware of how we use our smartphones and what are the apps that we really need, because the rest of things are there and probably would allow for someone else to spy on us. And there's also the Internet of Things. we connect any device to internet, and I will show this in further detail later on, but we don't know how it works. I purchased a new television, a smart television, recently, and I turned it on, and it says I detect a Wi-Fi connection. And I was like, well, let's see if I can watch the television first. So if it has Wi-Fi, you have the feeling that you need to connect, but they also have a camera and a microphone. Are we the ones controlling these, or is someone else controlling it? That's what we should be able to know about, because then there are security policies that says that to improve voice recognition in your television can gather this information so that you're identified better, but it doesn't tell us when it does this recording and what does it do with this information. I could also talk about Cortana, this assistant that you have in Windows, this this kind of secretary, and they monitor everything, what we write, what we say. They are assistants, so they need to know everything, but I don't know who it is. I've tried to eliminate her, but it's very difficult because even though I've erased everything, but still in the processes, Cortana is part of it. So we need to be very careful and to be aware of all of this. Then ransomware is evolving and getting to the cloud. I don't know if you know about this, but ransomware is a kind of attack in which your computer or tablet or smartphone tells you that it has been hacked and it blocks the access to all your documents. So it doesn't allow you to access this. Why? Because they use a password that only the attackers know, and they ask for a ransom or for you to pay to get that password. Lately, they will tell you that you've been in pornography or an illegal downloading website, and that's why you had been detected. And sometimes you had the police logo, and somehow it was saying that the Spanish police asked for a fine for what you had been doing. But the truth is that it wasn't the police and that it was all false. This means that we need to be more and more aware and to know what we can and we can't do. And then we have attacks against selling points, all the credit cards and all the different means of payment. There will be a bigger risk with all of this. I also wanted to talk about the example of cars. Vehicles are more and more digital. They are more sophisticated, and some of them are always connected to the internet and have a bunch of systems that allow us to control the vehicle. I go back to the past when you had a car and you had a problem on the road. You stopped, you opened, you checked, a friend came and said it's this or that. But now I look at it and I can see anything. I see a great thing that must be the engine, and there's no way of doing something about it. Why? Because they all have a port for diagnosis and checkups in the workshops, OBD2 ports. And you can also connect another device, and this type of device that I brought for you to see as an example works as an SUV, and if you connect it to the car, you will see that you can position this device, and through an app for smartphones, it will talk about the performance of the car, consumption, gas emissions, everything. So it only allows you to read the data, but probably in the future it will evolve and you will be able to manipulate what's happening inside and to manipulate the values of the engine, or to be able to control some of the car's function. There are studies of people that have tried to see if they could hack a car to see if it could brake or start, or you could open the windows. But what you can do now with this type of devices, well, we have devices for geolocalization through a SIM card or through a telephone card like the one you can see on the screen, that allows you to get the complete information of where you are. And this is an example of what I did before coming here to the Congress. I went around San Sebastian and I saw how the car took all the information. That means that the young people working in the automotive sector should know that as we include electronic systems, and these electronic systems allow you to connect to the internet, you are opening a door, because whenever you can connect to something, you can, through the outside, get there in a legal or illegal manner. This means that we should learn about what could happen. And the same thing with medical devices. There are hospitals and clinics where everything is more computerized, and there is a dependence of the systems, the networks, the internet. There's different devices controlled by computers, and there are more and more devices offered at a personal level. For example, insulin pumps, or that can be connected to the internet through Wi-Fi and through Bluetooth. And all these devices, if there is a local control, well, we could think they are safe. But once you open this up to the internet, we should be very careful about this communication and connection to guarantee that no one can hack this information. If, for example, we've seen examples of this in films, because they want to kill a politician and they've hacked his pacemaker, and then that is someone that is controlling their pacemaker and the control system for this pacemaker. I don't mean that everyone studying medicine also needs to be a cyber expert, but this means that someone should be concerned about this, so that at least we describe the risks of the technologies and that everyone is aware of how we should use them in the safest manner possible. But if there's something that is really evolving, and that's everything having to do with domotics. We have more and more solutions provided for our homes to be completely monitorized. Sensors, movement sensors, everything having to do with the control of the temperature. And there are companies that provide products like this one. You receive an alert if there's movement in that home. For example, when you travel or in a holiday home that you don't, where there's usually no one. These are just examples, but maybe the one that you can see that is sold a lot are these cameras for babies that allow you to see if the baby is okay, if the baby is sleeping or coughing, and here you receive real-time information. I want to believe that at least you are home and you're just in a different room. You haven't gone to have drinks with your friends somewhere else. But still, the problem is that all these monitoring systems are connected somehow to the internet and are allowing other devices like smartphones to provide this information. What you see here is something that I showed some days ago, and we see how randomly with a Sodan, which that is another search engine, it allows you to try and find devices that are connected to the internet, and then it'll tell you what is the port that is open. And more specifically, port 555 is used by many of these video cameras. So I tried to find someone, for example, in Hong Kong, but clearly you can see that this is a child's bedroom, that someone has the camera. This is from the 10th of June. And the camera has been left turned on, and there's no kind of password nor control. This means that this mom or dad can watch the child, but also anyone else, like myself. It is also true that many of the systems work with a user and a password. But we can go back to what we said before. If the user and password are the same for everything, like in the case of LinkedIn or Facebook or Gmail, we can be hacked, or they can know through one of our other accounts what is our user and password. And here we can see how many of the systems are screens that you can access through the internet or through an IP. In this case, an IP that I found through this search engine. Many of these systems are configured by default. That means that the user and password is admin. So if I check if it works, this means that I can connect. This is a camera that I think it's turned off, sorry. But what I want you to see is that the remote system to get in with a password and user is sometimes not valid because they use the user and password that is used by default, and then everyone can have access.
Ay, esta no es. Esta es, sí. Con eso me refería a que no basta.
So it's not enough that we know how to use the technology, to know how to turn on a camera and use the Wi-Fi password. It's okay, but you need to know more about it. How do we protect ourselves? In companies, they talk about security policies. Don't do this or that. Or even there's some legislation on data protection or intellectual property or access to files. And mainly there's lots of technology, lots of hardware. But the truth is that what we really need is training. And we need training because we cannot leave security on the hands of technicians and computer experts. We need to know what we can do or what we shouldn't do to be part of that chain. In the case of computer VET courses, there is a degree, and here we have the different subjects, but we see that it doesn't include security regarding the development of code, but there is an organization named OWASP that is an organization that since 2007 detects vulnerabilities in the programming or in the way in which the programmers develop the programs. And each year they tell us what are the top 10. All these vulnerabilities are due to errors in code and in programming. That means that it is not enough to know how to program, but you need to know how to program in a safe manner. You need to know what are the errors that can make you be vulnerable. Here we have an example of this study and what are the type of applications that shown errors. Also, apps that are being marketed. And what is true is that in vocational education and training of experts on networks and computer administration systems, at least they have 90 hours on security, and they are taught what this is. But they are taught at this level. That is talking about the technology, authentication, confidentiality, validation of data, filtering, control. So they teach them how to protect the system, but you don't teach the users to be aware. We trust that the computer experts are going to do things correctly, but it's not going to be enough if at the end of the day the users use admin as the username and password. So it is that fail by using this type of thing. Why? Because these are default passwords. Here we have the ranking for the year 2015 that shows if there has been any changes compared to 2014. And these are the passwords that are more used in MySpace or internet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the password most used by people. If you use it, don't raise your hand. Others use password. One said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 because they were really concerned. But this is real. These are the statistics. And this is of the year 2015 with the passwords that are most used. So it is very easy to get in. If you've seen Mr. Robot, It's a series where he hacks Facebook accounts. Why? Because by default, he tests if they're using this type of passwords or passwords linked to their personal life. So he investigates and tries to use these passwords. Here, all the places I need to connect to. So it is impossible for me to remember all of these passwords. And this is just a fourth of the number that I really use. So what could we do? It is better to have a manager of passwords, a program that stores these very robust and different passwords, and all this based on a very complex master password, or we could also use a biometric device. Some devices already include this, or you can purchase it like an SUV that allows you for any computer to have this recognition. And in this way, we would only be concerned about one password. And all the other passwords are going to be difficult and complex. And I'm almost finished now, but there's another thing that is very important, and that's Wi-Fi networks. Wherever you go, you say, oh, let's see, there's Wi-Fi. You go shopping, you're at the pharmacy. Wherever you go, you expect to have Wi-Fi to be able to download something and not to use your data in your 3G or 4G line. But how do we know if these open Wi-Fi networks are not going to be hacking you? To have a false Wi-Fi network is very, very simple. I don't know if you are now checking there's a Wi-Fi. You'll probably see that there's one that's called Congress FP. Can you see? That network is not the official one. It's one that I've created in my smartphone. I gave it the name Vocational Training Congress, or Congress FP. And the truth is that this is a network that I created and that I could also have in my computer, and I could demonstrate in 1 second that I could access to the data of anyone that would connect to this network. Shouldn't we use these networks? It's not that, but we need to be careful with what we do then, because we can always be sure that even if we have the name of the place where we are, for it to be the real network. So do it to check Google, but don't check your bank account or don't check your work email, because this could be a problem. And also because this is something completely linked with our daily activity of every day, we see the subject of how we use credit cards to purchase online every day.
So if I purchase something, I use my card and type in the numbers and buy something. The problem is if we are hacked or access a fake web, they'll have access to the maximum limit that we have in our card. So that's why we should use a virtual card. That is a virtual card that we create on internet with the amount that we need for the purchase we want to make. And we can make as many as we want. This is something that exists here in San Sebastian in Cuchabank. You can create a virtual credit card, so you can say, okay, for this purchase or this booking for an internet hotel, which is asking me for 33.47 euros, I create a card which has a maximum limit of 100 euros, and what I'm going to do is make small payments with it until I've used it all up. And then if they hack into this card, or I mistakenly go to a fake website, they can't access everything I've got, just the maximum amount that that card has. At the end of the day, it works in the same way. All you do is give them the data of your virtual card, and that's it. You just have to create this card. You can cancel them when you want. I'm saying this because it's this kind of culture that we need to adopt, because the most frequent incidents are created by people. We seem to forget about pen drives, smartphones, tablets, or printers that contain confidential information that we haven't protected. We leave papers at printing machines. We send emails mistakenly which reach other people. And then we say, oh, whoops, I've sent it to somebody mistakenly. And they say, oh, no, don't worry. You've said if this, you put at the bottom a disclaimer saying, oh, if this email wasn't for you. But the thing is, if the email wasn't for you, you read it and you read it again and you read it 3 times and then you realize it wasn't for you. So what I'm trying to say is you need to be more cautious. Also, people are looking over our shoulders when we're working. They say, what are you doing? And you're working and they're looking at your screen. There are screen filters. There are different measures, safety measures that you can take. To close, what I'd say to you is that we're all taught about the prevention of workplace risks when we go to work, but nobody ever talks about the prevention of digital risks. Nobody tells us about how to protect our smartphones, how to protect confidential information, and it's something that should be included in VET in the same way that we provide careers guidance, workplace information, or even when we're going on a practical placement. Why? Because everything that you've seen here, which is information presented by Insibe, which tells us the basic information about our job. At the very least, we should have this kind of information about awareness of cyber safety in the company so that we end up not becoming victims of this. At the end of the day, we live in the smart era. Everything's smart. Glasses, watches, TV, everything. The thing is, are we smart enough? I mean, can we rise to the occasion of this? Thank you very much.